Hello, my name is Kirioth, and today we're going to talk about that Mechanicus game, what has been announced. And yes, I am a day late, but as you can hear, I'm ill again. It never ends. Nurgle will not leave me alone. He wants me bad. At this point, I'm thinking I might go full soul Indecius and just accept it and see what happens. I mean, I could ascend and become some sort of like the first chosen Nurgle in this universe, or I could just die. I'm not really sure which way it would go, but at this point I'm starting to think that it might be worth finding out. Anyway, let's talk about this Mechanicus game. Okay, so I'm actually kind of excited about this for two reasons. The first being that the last game that was announced before this was that Horus Heresy VR game, which people thought I was a bit too harsh on that. I don't think I was. I think I explained why I didn't feel it would be that popular, and I think I did a decent enough job saying it's kind of a niche product within a niche product. It has a lot of work to do to get a player base that would make it worth playing, that would make it worth making. And pushing the VR angle was not the way to go in terms of marketing it. I still think that's fair. I don't think I said anything there that is, I say untrue. I mean, it could be wrong, but that's what I think of it. This actually looks a lot more promising straight off the bat, and it also looks to be not as risky, not as, I say ambitious. That's not fair, because ambition has got nothing to do with whether something is VR or not. It's all about the drive behind the team, and there's nothing to suggest that Kasedo Games, who are making it, are any less driven than the dudes making the Horus Heresy VR game. So I won't use that word, having used it and then backtracked on myself. You get the idea. The thing that I'm liking about this is, I mean, firstly, what is it? It's a turn-based strategy game, as these things often are, which for a while I kind of was thinking, wouldn't it be nice if we had something that wasn't turn-based strategy? But to be honest, without wishing to sound as though I'm being condescending to the people who make, you know, PC games or video games based on Warhammer 40k, I feel like turn-based is the most comfortable starting block. I feel like there is less interpretation of like tabletop mechanics and stuff that need to be done to create a turn-based game, because 40k is on the tabletop obviously a turn-based game. By necessity it has to be. So starting out turn-based in terms of a video game, I feel like that requires less in the way of, okay, how would this actually work? One of the things that impressed me so much about the Dawn of War series, excluding 3, was the fact that even though it was not turn-based, even though it was an RTS, it still retained that Warhammer 40,000 feel, which is obviously essential to games that are representing the universe. I don't know really if I've played anything else that isn't turn-based apart from Space Marine that has really replicated that. There's been other games, there's been various mobile efforts and stuff, and there's been, what is the name of it? There's that Imperial Knight one that I don't believe that was turn-based, but turn-based is the most logical solution to the problem of how do we interpret 40k in a video game. The fact that this is turn-based, whilst at one hand it is like, but we have plenty of those, on the other hand, you're kind of off for a good start using that particular system. So, whilst it's not the most kind of, I guess, what is the right word? Not ambitious. Whilst it's not the most exciting, the most kind of out there, it is kind of safe. And at this point, given the way Dawn of War 3 went, I'll kind of take safe over let's try something funky and new. So, turn-based game based on Mechanicus, obviously, by the name. And beyond that, to be honest, we don't really know that much. It's been announced, and you'll be able to upgrade your units, and you'll be on planet whatever it is. I've already forgotten the name. That's quite bad. I will double check what the name of the planet is. But on the Warhammer community site, at least, they say that you will augment, you'll upgrade your tech priest limbs. Excellent. Customize your team with hundreds of possibilities. Sounds good. Although actually it says customize your team with hundreds of possibilities. So I'm guessing that whilst it is turn-based, it'll be kind of I was going to say dungeon crawlery, something like that, probably. Make tough decisions that will forge the future from your Arc Mechanicus, the Cestus Metallicon. I'm on board with the names at the very least. It really, that sounds quality. Experience the New Sphere. Use the Adeptus Mechanicus evolved human cognition to scan and explore tombs for valuable data in order to gain a tactical advantage over your enemy, and a compelling story written by Black Library author Ben Counter, specifically crafted to fit the unique personality of the Adeptus Mechanicus faction. That is something that actually does fill me with excitement. An actual proper story-based game with a Black Library author producing the story for it. That's already good. That's already nice. I like that. That, to me, in fact, suggests there's more involvement there from Games Workshop than there has been in some previous efforts, which I don't think is ever a bad thing. There is also not a hint of mobile game anything in this. I mean, they point out it heads to PC, Mac, and Linux. And actually, having looked at Kasedo Games and Calypso, which Kasedo Games are part of, if you go through Calypso's back catalogue, there's a few decent games in there. That quite a lot of these I haven't played, so I don't want to say whether they're good or bad. But things like Tropico, it's not a bad series. There's been some decent stuff in there. I seem to remember the Dungeons series, some of them at least, being pretty decent as well. Calypso almost exclusively deal with PC and Mac, and in fact, having a quick look at their back catalogue now, I can't really see anything outside of PC and Mac. So, in this case, they're partnering with an experienced publisher and a developer that seems to focus specifically on the one platform, which is, again, a really good thing. It can kind of get very fuzzy when you start spreading out, especially to mobile platforms. A lot of the game will be lost to simplicity. So actually knowing that isn't going to happen, again, fills me with a bit more confidence. As I say, beyond that, there's not a huge amount that we really know, but the main takeaway that I'm getting from this, the thing that I'm liking most about this, is that it is showing that maybe the kind of the slow death and eventual abandonment of Dawn of War 3 isn't like the death knell that I was worried about. One of the main concerns I had coming out of Dawn of War 3, and the fact that Dawn of War 3 has been abandoned by Relic, is that Dawn of War 3 was an expensive franchise. It was a long-lived franchise, and it was a very popular franchise that failed, and it failed badly. And it would be very easy for a company to look at something of that size, of that scope, and with that kind of a success rate, and say, well, if this didn't work, there's obviously no market for this stuff anymore. Games Workshop does not seem to have done that. I have trouble believing that when licensing out their IP, Games Workshop would not put something in there that basically said, and if we pull out, tough shit, deal with it. Or at the very least, they would have something in there that would mean they could make a graceful exit from the partnership. Not only is that not happening because this game is still going ahead, but there's also direct involvement from a Black Library author to produce the story for this. I had a genuine concern that the death of Dawn of War 3 would essentially be the death of Games Workshop actively attempting to work with game developers. I was worried that Games Workshop would essentially do what Games Workshop used to do, because Games Workshop were very good at retreating in on themselves, at kind of not abandoning the outside world, but becoming very insular, very kind of secretive, and not really explaining what was happening, not really poking their head above the parapet to actually talk to their user base. The fact that this exists still, and it's being, the way it's being announced, which it seems to be the way it's been phrased anyways, that the Warhammer community site had the exclusive announcement for this game. That could just be one of those things that was agreed when the game was agreed on, but if anything, that to me suggests that Games Workshop are still interested in trying to push 40k not just as a tabletop / figures business and franchise, but they're also willing to try and push themselves as being properly associated, like fully associated. There's a difference between having Games Workshop appear on a splash screen in a game and Games Workshop saying nothing about that game, to Games Workshop actually, like, actively saying on their community site, look at this thing that this company is doing, look what we are doing with these people. There is a difference there, and the fact that it's still happening, whether it was something that was agreed on beforehand, which I'm still fairly sure they could probably pull out if they really want to, the fact it's still happening, the fact it is being pushed, and there is that direct association being made, that actually gives me a lot of hope. As for how this thing looks, I'm interested. I'm not going to lie, I am interested. The way it's phrased, I do kind of see I kind of see like almost a dungeon crawl kind of thing, a turn-based dungeon type scenario with like a central command center where you'll be able to upgrade your stuff and so on and so forth. If that's what it is, then I'm absolutely willing to give it a try, because to be honest, it looks promising. Far more promising than I thought the Horus Heresy VR game looked. Which, again, I don't want it to crash and burn. I just don't know if it'll work. This, I'm a little bit more confident about. I'm a little more convinced that it will do something good. I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm cautiously excited. It's going to be out this year, so I look forward to actually playing it, and I'm really hoping that this could be something properly good. But question, as always, is what do you think? Do you think it looks decent? Do you want to know more about it? You're not fussed? Do you think Games Workshop are only pushing it because they are obliged to? Or do you think it's a good sign that Games Workshop hasn't sort of withdrawn and decided that with the failure of Dawn of War 3, it's not worth their time trying to push this stuff anymore? Be interested in what you think on this one. It's an interesting one. So yeah, let me know in the comments down below. In the meantime, feel free to click any of the links you see on the screen in front of you. There's videos, Patreon, subscribe, all of that shit. Click it if you like, don't click it if you don't want to, and I will see you for the next video, hopefully tomorrow, unless I'm ill properly again, in which case it'll have to be Friday. Pray for me to whichever chaos god you choose, but not the god emperor, because I'm pretty sure he's abandoned me at this point. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time. Toodaloo.